have a question from Nico. How can we change the idea for innovation from being an expense to being something else for headmasters at schools?
So this is where I think how things function in Chile is very different, perhaps, than how they function in the United States. So I'm thinking of mostly universities. In universities in the United States, we have, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 universities or something like that in the United States. I would say that 80% of them teach entrepreneurship now because they recognize how important that is. They don't necessarily do it well, but they do it. And because it's a mandate, because it's essential. So it's no longer viewed as an expense, it's viewed as a culture, as an embedded part of what we have to do for education. And prior to universities at the high school level, we find the same thing is happening, that high schools are offering either entrepreneurship as a class or sometimes as a module within another class. There are entrepreneurship clubs for young people. So I think that it has to, if it's looked at as an only an expense, then it's never going to happen. If it's looked at as being an essential ingredient, then you find the way to make that happen, including finding a way to pay for it. Now, in the United States, we have a strong culture of giving back, of donations. So the Big Idea Center was formed with a $2 million donation that I secured from somebody who is an alum, who is on the board of directors of the University of Pittsburgh, and who saw what I did for 4 years in terms of building programs basically by myself from scratch. So I got paid a salary, but I did most everything else with very little money. He saw how impactful that was and decided to give some of his own personal wealth to the university in order to do that. I think that that's a challenge in Chile, and not just Chile, but in many other countries around the world that don't have that same kind of culture. That said, as entrepreneurs get formed, as they become successful, you can go ask them to give back and to give talks and to help out. So I think you have to turn all of this discussion from being about money to being about outcomes. How can Chile turn itself into, if you are considered, you're definitely not a third world country. I've been there. Are you a first world country? Maybe. I know that I met people down there that said, exactly. They said, we are a second world country. Yeah. So if you want to increase your economy, how is that going to happen? You think it's going to be by exporting lithium so that everybody else can make really expensive products that are high in value and high margin? Probably not. So, is going to be successful as a country because of entrepreneurship, not in spite of entrepreneurship, but because of entrepreneurship. And if your government and if your universities embrace that, you will find a way to make it happen, because it's not that expensive to do. It's more expensive to not do it, because the opportunity cost of not encouraging students to take the entrepreneurship path when they can, when they're young, what do you have to lose? Nothing. You graduate from a university, very few of you will have children, very few of you will have spouses, very few of you will have homes that you own. So yes, you might give up a job, but you can get that job later for more money because you'll have better experience. So the risk is low, and the risk of not doing it as a country is very high, I think.
Yeah, interesting.